Hello and welcome to another Netflix scary movie review. If you would like to see the first review in this series, you can click this link right here, or there will be a link to the first one in the description box as well. All of these movie reviews will be spoiler free, and I will give my opinion on if I think they will get you in the spooky or creepy mood for the Halloween season. I do pick these movies at random according to my Netflix suggested section or the horror movie section. I do not take the Netflix star rating into consideration because most of the time I do not agree with the star rating. Let's get started. Our first movie is called The Haunter. This movie is starring Abigail Breslin. It is not rated, and on Netflix it has a 3-star rating. The description of this movie: a teenager is stuck in a time loop that is not quite the same each time. She must uncover the truth, but her actions have consequences for herself and others. I really enjoyed this storyline, and I thought that it was something new. I haven't seen a similar movie like this before, so it was very refreshing to see a different take on a scary movie, or you could say a suspenseful movie. This movie does have like a confusing aspect to it, but it only makes you want to learn more about the backstory, the characters, the house, past decades, and anything within this movie. Acting was great for this. Abigail Breslin is a really great actress, and the rest of the cast did well also. This movie featured a few creepy moments, but not too many jump scares. It is very much a supernatural thriller. This movie really kept me engaged throughout the whole length of it. I really was a fan of the lighting they use, different shots, just overall what the director did with this movie. So for The Haunter, yes, I would recommend this if you're interested in a supernatural thriller. Next up, we have The Woman in Black 2: The Angel of Death. Yes, this is a sequel to the first The Woman in Black, starring Daniel Radcliffe. This one is starring Phoebe Fox, Helen McCrory, and Jeremy Irene. This movie is rated PG-13 and has a 2-star rating on Netflix. The description: during World War II, a group of London schoolchildren are evacuated to a depleted house where they unwittingly reawaken a vicious spirit. Going to make this review straight to the point, I hated this movie. I wanted to give it a chance because I thought the first one was okay, but this sequel was horrible. My biggest pet peeve in scary movies is lighting. And this movie was so dark, I had no idea what was going on. I have no idea if there was a scary part happening because I couldn't see anything. I'm not sure what they were thinking about when they made the movie so dark, but it was extremely irritating, and I was watching this in a completely dark room and I still couldn't see anything. There was only one part that I jumped at this movie, and it wasn't because it was scary, it's because the volume increased so loud, the sound of the bang made me jump. I have no idea what was going on because the movie was so dark, but the loud sound made me jump. This movie does feature children's deaths, so I would pass on this movie if you are very sensitive to that. I would pass on this movie in general though, because I think it's a waste of time. This movie really is just so boring. In the first one, we get the backstory of the house. We get the backstory of the Woman in Black. So when you create a sequel, you need to introduce new storylines. They didn't do that. They just kind of tried to tell us the same stuff they told us in the first one, add a couple things here and there, making for a very boring storyline. I did actually almost shut this movie off because I was so irritated with how dark it was and how boring the storyline was, and I never shut movies off. I did make it through to the end, but no, I would not recommend you watch this movie. As I said, I thought the first one was decent, so I tried to give the sequel a chance, but it really just ended up being one of those horrible horror movie sequels. Next up, we have The Dead Room, starring Jed Brophy, Jeffrey Thomas, and Laura Person. This movie is rated TV MA and has 1.5 stars on Netflix. The description is: after a ghost chases a terror-stricken family out of their lonely farmhouse, it turns its wrath on a team of researchers that move in to investigate. So this movie does take place in New Zealand, so for the opening shots we get some beautiful shots of New Zealand scenery, but then it quickly fades into some really horrible green screen effects, which gave me a weird vibe, so that was a really interesting way to start the movie. This is very much a typical ghost hunting movie. We set up the cameras in each room, the mics, we bring in the potential psychic to help us investigate this house. I will give them props on the lighting for this movie. As I said, dark movies irritate me. I can't even see your work if you make it so dark. This movie had really amazing lighting, and even when it was dark out or it was supposed to be night, you could still see the actors, you could still see what was going on even though the room was dark. Like, I gotta give props to the lighting guy on this movie. This movie had a lot of lead-ups and waiting to find out what the hell is actually going on. Acting was mostly good for this movie as the movie started, but as we progressed further, I think the acting kind of went downhill. I think you could tell that this movie was more low budget. They relied more on the suspense of the idea of what was going on instead of actually seeing things happening. And so it really didn't give too many scary moments because of that. Big problem with this movie is absolutely zero backstory. I need backstory in movies of all kind, but especially horror movies. There's something haunting this house or something supernatural going on in this house. I want to know why. We got zero backstory on the family that previously lived there, what had happened years ago. We didn't get a backstory at all. There are just so many loose ends that they didn't explain. We were left hanging on so many different storylines. I will say the end of the movie got super weird. It kind of went from an okay potential movie to super corny and weird and a little ridiculous in my opinion. So I would not recommend this movie to get you in your creepy Halloween spirit. It just didn't have a good storyline start to finish. There were so many unanswered questions, and the whole end of the film was extremely rushed. Next up, we have Dead Silence, starring Ryan Quatten, Amber Valletta, and Donnie Wahlberg. This movie is unrated and has a 2.5-star rating on Netflix. Description is, in the wake of his bride's death, grieving newlywed Jamie is forced to return to his hometown where he butts heads with the ghost of a ventriloquist. Let me just start off by saying I hate dolls. I remember from my childhood, my grandma had a whole room dedicated to her doll collection. Used to creep me out so bad when I was a child, I never got over it. So I kind of knew I was getting into some creepy stuff when I started this movie. This is actually a James Wan movie. I'm a big fan of his directing and his horror movies, and I wasn't actually aware that this was one of his. He's done some great scary movies like The Conjuring, Insidious. I'm just a big fan of his movies, so I was hoping for some of his signature creepy moments within Dead Silence. In this movie, some of the score, oddly enough, reminded me of the original Halloween score. I don't know, just kind of a side note that I noticed as I was watching. This movie really does have the creep factor to it. It includes several creepy moments and jump scares. And as I said, I'm already kind of scared of dolls, so I was definitely creeped out while watching this movie. The villain in this, you could say, is very creepy looking, but also kind of reminded me of some of James Wan's other characters, especially like from the second Insidious movie. Creepy vibes were for sure there in this movie, and jump scares. Overall, this movie was very interesting. I enjoyed the backstory tying to the present day, and it did give me the creepy vibe that I was looking for. I did guess a portion of the ending, but it still did keep me entertained and kept me watching. Yes, I would recommend this movie to get you into your Halloween spirit. Our final movie is called Visions, starring Isla Fisher, Anson Mount, and Jillian Jacobs. This movie is rated R and has a 3-star rating on Netflix. The description is, after moving to a vineyard, a pregnant woman is plagued by chilling hallucinations and sets out to uncover the truth about the property's dark past. This movie is super interesting, and I was fully engaged throughout the whole length of it. It's one of those movies that I had never heard of before. I just happened to find it on Netflix. It kind of sounded decent and decided to watch it for this video, and I was very pleased with it. I'd say it does feature a few creepy moments that get your heart beating a little bit faster, and a couple jump scares to give you that scary effect. Of course, I was very interested in the storyline. Backstories are my thing. This movie kept me guessing throughout the film. I kept going back and forth on what my theories are and what was happening, what was going on. While I did figure out a few things, the majority of this movie surprised me, and I did not see some of the main points coming at all. It was a very unique story and idea, in my opinion. Acting was really great from the entire cast, and I really enjoyed how different shots were set up. I would recommend this movie to get you in the Halloween spirit. Alright guys, that was 5 more Netflix scary movie reviews for you to hopefully get you into the Halloween spirit. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!